Marxism is the opium of the intellectuals. My parents divorced. There was the usual awkward business of going between them, but I was mostly with my mother. She remarried to a Greek painter Nico Ghika, so we were always around artists and intellectuals. Most intellectuals today have a phobia of any explanation of the mind that invokes genetics. Dissident intellectuals aren't all beautiful. I was born in April of 1966, on the eve of the Cultural Revolution. Soon after, my parents and grandparents all lost personal freedom simply for being intellectuals. So I spent most of my childhood rotating between adopted families of peasants and coal miners. When you have a foreign invasion, in this case by the Indonesian army, writers, intellectuals, newspapers and magazines are the first targets of repression. I'm not one of those James Joyce intellectuals who can stand back and look at the whole edifice. It was a slow process for me to just crawl out of it, like a snake leaving his skin behind. It's the job of intellectuals and writers to cast doubt on perfection. I think that one possible definition of our modern culture is that it is one in which 9/10 of our intellectuals can't read any poetry. Mainstream Jewish intellectuals became pro-Israel after the June 1967 war when Israel became the USA's strategic asset in the Middle East, i.e., when it was safe and reaped benefits. To credit them with ideological conviction is, in my opinion, very naive. It was generally believed that Catholics were not interested in arts and science graduate schools. They weren't going to be intellectuals. And so I put the theses to the test, and they all collapsed. And with each day that passed, the gulf broadened and my isolation became more accentuated. In such a situation, the discovery that my experience was not unique, that it had also been that of other Spanish intellectuals, became very important for me. When I speak of the fear, intimidation, arrests, and public shaming of intellectuals and religious leaders who dare to speak their minds, and then I tell you that I'm from Saudi Arabia, are you surprised? Intellectualism came very late to America. That's why Americans are so proud of it. I found very few real intellectuals in America, but there are so many pseudo-intellectuals. I think this confusion leads intellectuals and artists themselves to believe that the elite arts and humanities are a kind of higher, exalted form of human endeavor. Beekeeping is farming for intellectuals. Ironically, Latin American countries, in their instability, give writers and intellectuals the hope that they are needed. My parents were liberal intellectuals, but even they expected me to stay at home and look after my younger siblings and do the housework. There is an interior style we intellectuals and design policy wonks know as haute Euro-puftastic, which really takes the biscuit. Soccer riots kill at most tens. Intellectuals' ideological riots sometimes kill millions. Out-of-step intellectuals like Noam Chomsky and the deceased Edward Said have often been dismissed as crazy extremists, anti-American, and in Mr. Said's case even, absurdly, as apologists for Palestinian terrorism. Intellectuals try to keep going, but their situation is very difficult. Those who have had the courage to voice their opposition have often paid a very high price. It is certainly safe, in view of the movement to the right of intellectuals and political thinkers, to pronounce the brain death of socialism. Unsuccessful businessmen and workers do not have the same animus against the capitalist system as do the wordsmith intellectuals. Only the sense of unrecognized superiority, of entitlement betrayed, produces that animus. Visit a typical science classroom and you will discover far more than empirical facts being taught. The dominant worldview among scientific intellectuals is evolutionary naturalism, which holds that humans are essentially biochemical machines. Don't make art for other artists or for intellectuals, make art for people, and if you can touch just one person in a lifetime and make a difference, you have succeeded. In the Arab world, there is no link between the cultural habits of peoples and the ways of thinking and creating of modern intellectuals. They are two separate worlds. Authority has to exist before it can be limited, and it is authority that is in scarce supply in those modernizing countries where government is at the mercy of alienated intellectuals, rambunctious colonels, and rioting students. I believe in the romantic interchange between intellectuals about fashion. After learning the language and culture of the Chinese people, these Jesuits began to establish contacts with the young intellectuals of the country. Intellectuals are too sentimental for me. One of the categories of people I don't like much are intellectuals. People say, "Oh, you're an intellectual," and I say, "No, what is an intellectual?" An intellectual is somebody who thinks ideas are more important than people. But the Spain which emerged around 1960, beginning with its economic miracle, created by the invasion of tourists, can no longer result in impassioned dedication on the part of its intellectuals, and even less on the part of foreign intellectuals. I believe that everybody has the right to view his or her own body as a palette. However, I think intellectuals should at least try to be role models. Jewish intellectuals contributed a great deal to ensure that Europe became a continent of humanism, and it is with these humanist ideals that Europe must now intervene in the Middle East conflict. Conservative voters tend to believe that the climate change agenda has been foisted upon us by an unaccountable lobby of politicized intellectuals. It is ironic that the United States should have been founded by intellectuals, for throughout most of our political history, the intellectual has been for the most part either an outsider, a servant, or a scapegoat. Intellectuals, academics, writers, and poets were an important force in the early groups of volunteers. They had the means to get to Spain and were accustomed to traveling, whereas very few workers had left British shores. Intellectuals would be much more accepted now than in the 40s. I'd always admired the intellectuals who had made the transition into politics, Mario Vargas Llosa in Peru, Václav Havel in the Czech Republic, Carlos Fuentes in Mexico, but I knew that many of them had failed, and in any event, I wasn't exactly in their league. Advice to intellectuals: let no one represent you. Intellectuals are in a position to expose the lies of governments, to analyze actions according to their causes and motives and often hidden intentions. Like many intellectuals, he was incapable of saying a simple thing in a simple way. We do not have many intellectuals who can speak out for us internationally. We have no writers who are recognized, respected, and loved outside the Arab world. MGR's rule took care of the poor, the downtrodden, and the middle class. I have faith that I, too, can provide that rule. With the help of technology and the support of youngsters, resourceful people, and intellectuals, I, too, can provide that kind of a rule. Futurism. This was a movement of intellectuals who wanted to replace tradition with the modern world of machinery, speed, violence, and public relations. It proves that we should be careful what intellectuals wish for, because we might get it. Certainly the party counts a considerable number of intellectuals among its members, but I am by no means disposed to apologize for that. Sometimes I get intimidated by people, intellectuals, because I don't have a great education. The only thing I feel helps me compete with all these people with degrees from Harvard, that you're thrown in with and have to work with, is that I'm grounded. Country and Western is ignored by the intellectuals. They don't look at it as an art form. They think it's just somebody sitting on his couch singing about his life. My wife and I, unlike many intellectuals, spent 5 years working on assembly lines. We came to fully understand the criticisms of the industrial age, in which you are an appendage of a machine that sets the pace. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.